not fake, never been fraud. Been great, still a little flawed. Always need sign when they call. Order up a drink while I'm sitting at the bar. Like, I need a strong tail, Nico make two. Honey Jack with a little bit of juice. CYA throwing up the dose. I'm all in. I try to get to get some peace, that's all I need. I try to get some peace, that's all I need.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl T.
Everybody know which one has been absent for a while, but he's back. Pretty tough. God damn it. Sexy chocolate.
Welcome to TNT Connect or Event Yours, whichever channel you are watching from. Tonight, we're doing Drinks and Deliberation. DnD is what we do on the first Saturday of each month, unless we're on a trip or something's going on. But anyway, thank you for being here this evening. Tonight, the topic is the education system. As you know, as everybody knows, there's been a lot of debate about whether the education system is right for our youth, whether that was back then. When I say back then, I'm saying, less than 100, less than 80 years ago, even up till today. So there's a lot more options. People either going to public school, private school, charter school, and some are even being homeschooled. And so we just want to talk and discuss a couple of topics to see and determine, is education really a scam? Our traditional education, is it a scam? Is it a scam just to get our money? Is it a scam in terms of what it portrays the education system to help us with? We're just trying to have this discussion and see. So with that said, let me go ahead and welcome those that are in the chat and see who's joined us today. We have Controversial Cruising. Hey, Scott, how are you doing today? Thank you for being here. And we got Brightazelle in the chat today. How you doing, Brightazelle? Thank you so much for being here. And we have Liam. How's it going, Liam? How's it going? Thank you for being here. Again, the topic is education. We got DT Cruiser in the house. Hey, DT, how's it going? We're going to jump into this category because we have quite a couple of sections to review and to debate, discuss, in addition to 3 or 4 very short videos. 3 of them are less than a minute. 1 of them is about 2 minutes and a half. But right now we are, I see we have one of our members here. Let's go ahead and bring her to the stage. Hey, Stacy, how's it going?
Great. How are you guys?
Doing good. Thank you for being here. We're just getting started. We was just doing the intro to let everyone know what our discussion is about today. And we was just about to get into our conversation. So just to give everybody a heads up, some of the topics we'll be discussing tonight are what was the purpose of the original education system, standardized testing, homework, your views on vocational versus academic pathways, the technology that is available now, teaching methodologies, uniforms, that can be a touchy subject to some, school choices, public school versus private versus charter, whether you're going to a county or state college versus a university or an Ivy League university, funding for schooling, just ways of funding these school loans, year-round schooling. Let's get into that, as well as what are some of the issues or things, benefits and or disadvantages in reference to in-school period for social ethics and well-being considerations, especially with today in the mindset of the young that we have now. So those are just some of the topics we're going to touch on today. I know it seems like a long list, but trust me, I'm pretty sure it won't take that long to talk about some of these things. So if you do have a question, please put the word question in your message first, or just put a Q. That way it'll help me identify it. I'll star it, and then throughout while we're having a discussion, I'll take a break and then I'll take some questions. Or if it's a statement, put an S in there, and I'll make sure that we bring that up on there. All right, Stacy, how you doing tonight, Stacy? And look, what are you sipping on? Because it's called Drinks and Deliberation. Now, I didn't say you had to be drinking liquor. You had to be drinking something.
I'm drinking water.
Say that again.
I'm drinking water. Like, I'm drinking some Long Island iced tea mix, but I've also finished my Modelo I started earlier.
Girl, so, mix over there. So you drinking liquor and beer?
Yes, I am.
You know that's an old school auntie thing.
No, it's not. I love to trace my liquor with a little bit of beer.
You gonna love to do nothing.
I do. I always get me a good strong drink. I got a beer in the other hand.
I like this one. Mm-hmm. I like this Modelo with the Long Island iced tea. For some reason, it goes down so good.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Well, I'm drinking some Woodford Reserve bourbon. That's all I'm drinking tonight. And Mr. over here got some Arizona watermelon juice.
So because I was in Dominican Republic drinking like a fish, I'm trying to get some of that alcohol out my system now. So
he's drinking some fruit punch, basically.
I understand. Get your energy back.
Trust me, it was hard. I went and bought some of that Simply lemonade, and I got me some peach crown up there. And them thing is a
that peach crown.
That peach crown with that Simply lemonade, man, that's slamming. Sip on that all day.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Anyway, we got Carnival Cruise Addicts in the house. Hey Liz, how you doing? And thank you so much. Thank you so much for the super chat. You know I got to give you the super chats.
Money line, I'ma run it every time. Give me mine, going up, need no decline. Money line, I'ma run it every time. Give me mine, going up, need no decline. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you so much for the support. She said just sending love and support. Thank you so much.
That's all we need. That's all the world needs is a little bit of love.
Yes, definitely. And Chris and Liz give a lot of love. I'm gonna get this heart thing right.
Don't worry,
Liz. My hands just won't do it.
Don't worry. When Timmy put the crown on Tuesday, I'm gonna give y'all a special shout out. We got the crown on.
Look, Liam already starting trouble. So Liam says, would that be called double fisting? You know, when you have one drink and the other drink, he wants to know, is that called double fisting?
It is double fisting. Yes. Because I'm trying to tell you, ain't nothing like a strong drink and a Corona to chase it down. I do that all the time.
What?
Then if I'm just drinking beer by itself, it's
is beer.
Yeah, beer by itself. It's beer. When I'm drinking beer by itself, is a second. See, I ain't got my crown on tonight. You see, she already over here trying to correct the king. Calm down, Lynette.
Whatever.
Look.
Anyway.
I love it.
Trav, how you doing? Welcome in, Trap. Thank you for being here. We're doing good tonight. Trap is saying, what's up, everybody? How's it going? So for those who just entered, we are talking about the education system. We're going to be touching on a few things, but at first, just to get us started, I'm just going to play this short clip about what the original education was actually set up to do initially.
Now, children are exposed to education if their parents are wise and healthy, i.e. if their parents are wise men and wise women, children get educated. If they're not, they get indoctrinated. There's a big difference. Our education system teaches people what to think, not how to think. If you study the history of our education system, Ken Wilber goes into this quite deeply if you want a resource. Our education system is still the exact system that was developed by warlords and plantation owners to control slaves. It was developed specifically to keep the kids busy so they could get more work out of the slaves and to train the children not to be creative, not to think for themselves, and to follow orders.
All right. So with that stated, what are your thoughts about that video, TJ? Do you agree with it? What do you agree with, not agree, or not agree with?
I kind of agree with the video dead on, because I feel like back then, now I can tell you, but back then, education was a tool that helped give you guidance and keep you focused while mom and daddy did other things. But it also gave you something back. Like when I was in school, we had home ec, we had auto mechanic, we had carpentry, we had mechanics, auto body. So, electrical. So we had brick mason, performing arts. We had a lot of things that kept us entertained, but it also gave something back. But now, I don't know.
Okay. So do you believe that school, according to that video, that it really wasn't there to really educate you? Really, your parents educated you. They helped you take the information you learned,
right,
and made sure that you understood it the right way.
Right.
But what about those who did not have those type of parents and relied on the school system to teach them? Do you think that they were educated, or do you think that they were basically being told how to be when you get out in the world?
They were educated, but not by a school system, by a street system. So those ones, and I feel, now that I think about it, I feel sorry for the ones who didn't have a mother and a father to reinforce what the teacher, explained and went over in the class. When I came home when I was a kid, we had 1 hour of homework every night, whether you had homework or not. And that right there alone helped reinforce what I was learning in school. That's what made me a straight A student.
Okay. Stacey, what are your thoughts about it?
I agree and disagree, because I think back then they also had religion and church that gave you instructions on how to live. I think if we looked at slavery, right? The slaves weren't really educated. So I've got to take them out of the loop as to keep them occupied, because they were occupied in the fields, right? So, and I think that the mothers and the fathers back then who made sure their kids went to the schoolhouse, that one lady who taught all the slave kids, stole a book, from the big house or whatever, was trying to give them an opportunity to uplift themselves and to change their outcome in life. So I kind of agree and disagree.
Okay. My thoughts on the education system, when actually really thinking about it, there were some that also showed there was some similarities. In other words, it's like teaching people what to think and not necessarily how to think, right? Because think about this. Who cares about the name of the rivers in the world? Just honestly, who cares? Anybody care? Do you care what rivers are in the world? Why?
I want to know what water I'm drowning in.
You know what? You stupid. You just silly. What I'm trying to say is it's more about you being able to regurgitate stuff that you memorize. It's not really educating you. And when I listen to not just that video, but just about education that you learn just from over time, and then you actually get out in the world and you find out that, of course, it depends on what kind of school you went to, right? Because it depends on what kind of teacher you had, what kind of parents you had, what resources you had access to, what's the term? What circles you circulated in, right? Because that really determined how you took that education and did whatever it was that you did, right? And then you have the students who learn how to memorize and go and take a test, and then they graduate top of the class. Were they really educated, or did they just test better, right? Did they just be able to memorize and regurgitate it? But did you learn it, right? Like, so you may be able to answer a question the way they tell it to you, but can you really speak on what it actually means? You see what I mean? And that part that depending on your teacher, depending on your school, depending on your circle that you circulate in, depending on your parents and how educated they really are or not, will determine whether you even learn not just what and how, but then you start learning the why, which is actually really what an education should be, is teaching you the why, right? So, okay, yes, the sky is blue. And this is how the sky becomes blue. Okay, well, why is it blue? There's some scientific reasons behind it, right? But who really asks that question, right? And then if you get students who do ask too many questions, what are they called? Behavior problems. Yes. They put them in the special classes because you're not listening, because I'm trying to tell you this and you're trying to say something different. So they create other areas like the gifted students, right? Because the gifted students take what is being said and they're questioning it, because it's like, I know there has to be more to it than this of what you're telling me. And I see it this way, but you're trying to tell me I can only see it this way. So that's my thoughts on the education system here. So which brings me to standardized testing. So when it comes to standardized testing, we all know about those, your ACTs, you got your regional exams, you got your SATs, your PSATs, your GREs, your GMEs, whether it's a test for high school or whether it's a test for college. To me, my thoughts are, it's really just another way to eliminate people, or just to help narrow down selections. That's just me. Okay, so if you can only accept but so many students, or so many students can be in this program or at this school or this university. How do I take 100,000 applicants and drill it down to the number that I need? What's the quickest way I can do it, right? What are your minimum qualifications? What you get on the test? Okay, anybody that got less than this, I don't even want to look at it. Now you done lowered the pot that you got to look at, right? Then it's okay, well, what school did they go to? Because that determines really, was your A really an A? Maybe it was an A in your school. Maybe your school was a low tier school. So your A was an A in that school, but it might be a C in a more higher tier school. So to me, I don't really agree with standardized testing, because to me, it just shows that you're a good test taker, and not everybody's a good test taker. Not everybody can do A, B, C, D. Some people may do better with explaining the answer, right? Because they actually understand it and can articulate it, but they may not be able to just give you one strict answer, because we all know those are trick questions. But those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts, Stacey?
I think you're describing the standardized testing for college admission. I think there are pros and cons for standardized testing in
you got it.
For standardized testing in elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, and this is why, right? I think the pros for me are school accountability, right? You look at the test, and you're supposed to be teaching them this. The kids are supposed to be at this baseline. They take the test, a large amount of kids, so we can determine whether or not they're learning the material you're supposed to give them, right? That's one. I think the con is, like you said, pros and cons, right? The con is it stresses the students out. Like there's some students who do well all school year, and then they take a test and they don't do well, right? I think for except outside of college admissions, another pro is it's objective. in the younger students, right? We're not looking at that. They're going to be able to advance to middle school, and we're going to pick a middle school that they can go to, or a high school, right? So it kind of gives you an idea of what areas to focus on. So there are pros and cons. I do agree with you though, Tanya, with college admissions, and it's a way to just like separate out the students that you want, the students that you don't want.
Right.
For the same,
right.
the same reasons, the pros and cons that I just gave. There's no accountability, right? You have to go into how they did. I feel like how they did from elementary, middle, high school, and only some schools, depending on the school that is, and depending on the demographic of students that get that deep dive too, right?
Right.
So yeah, I agree with you, but I think it's a little bit different when it's elementary, middle, and high school. I think it's necessary in some cases just to see where the students are at, where they need to be, hold the schools accountable, right, and be able to focus on certain areas.
Okay, what are your thoughts on?
Well, now I take a different approach. Standardized testing to me is just another control mechanism to way to put you in a box. You know, because I agree with the video earlier. Everybody not good test takers. So a standardized test, and I think Tanya said it herself, that test really don't mean that you're smarter than the next person.
No.
Because the test is multiple guess. So when you got a test that's multiple guess, if you're a good guesser, you can walk away with an A. If you're a good guesser. But if you ain't had, I would say, if you come in there, you ain't had enough sleep, you got brain fog and all that, you already done dropped the bomb on that test. But you still trying to recall, you have memory recall of what was presented before you earlier in the year. And a lot of times the test and what you was taught, two different things. I even seen that in college. You go there, the teacher be putting all kinds of stuff on the board, going there and everything. So why did they give you a textbook and the teacher don't even follow the textbook? She pulling shit out of her head and out of her wig and putting it on the board. And then when you get the test, you know what I'm saying? You just out here left field.
Well, I want to touch on that real quick before I bring the video up about the standardized testing. This is just a video on this guy's thoughts in reference to saying he doesn't disagree with any type of standardized testing. He just feels it shouldn't occur until high school for a reason, and he explains why.
Okay, I can see that.
My thoughts on when I think of college or university, that to me is now instead of the government paying the school to educate your child, college is a choice. You do not have to go.
No.
Right? So the expectation, depending on which type of school you choose, the expectation is that you should be getting something out of it, meaning you get to demand, hey, this teacher, I get to evaluate you at the end of this semester. You taught me nothing. I ask questions. What you're talking about is not making sense, or is not related to the material that we're reading about, or you didn't provide education to the point of making me elaborate more or have creative thinking based on what I read. So, because me and our daughter had this conversation before when she first entered college, right? Because she got so used to that indoctrined public school, which our next topic we're going to talk about public versus private and all that stuff. It took her creative thinking that she used to have, and she used to get dinged for it, to say, no, we already told you this is what the answer should be. And it's like, she's like, there's more to it than that. But if she put that answer is wrong, you see what I mean? Because they want this answer. Right. So, but it doesn't mean her other answer wasn't right. It just, it wasn't in the way that they wanted it reflected. Right. So going to college is different. And then it's almost like she had to relearn. It's almost like I told her, turn your brain back to the way it was before. But it's kind of hard when you've been going to school for 12 years, right? Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, switch it back to be creative now. I want you to actually think, because public school makes you think the way they want you to think. So in college, to make my point, yes, you read the textbook, but the thing is, the textbook only tells you what and how, where, when. It doesn't elaborate on the why. That's what your professor is supposed to do. That textbook is supposed to, because what they always teach you to do is, I want you to challenge everything. Everything you see in this book, I want you to come back to class and say, this doesn't sound right to me. Why is this? They said it's supposed to be this, but based on other things I've read or just natural things that you've learned, can't this be this? Why can't the professors want you to do that, right? So college, we're not talking about grade school. Grade school is the part that I feel is a scam. You get to choose what college or university, if that, where you go to determine what you're going to learn. So I don't agree with that part. I don't think that if a professor in a university is going to test you, they're not going to test you at the university the same way that you're going to be tested in elementary school, because these professors are trying to get more of you to think, which means that you need to retain and fully understand the material, not just from this perspective, but holistically. So no matter what kind of question I throw at you, you should be able to give me an answer that makes sense. You understand what I mean? So
I get what you're
go ahead, Stacey.
I think and I always tell my kid, both my kids, but most of my daughter, because my son is on a whole different spectrum, right? I think for textbooks, you look at text, it's reference material. I've always taught my daughter that.
That's what it is.
Textbooks are reference material. You're always supposed to critically think about the information you're getting from a textbook. That's so right. Any question can come from that text or that lecture or that class, the instruction you've been given, right? So that you can still answer the question correctly, even if the teacher hasn't taught it to you. Right?
That's right.
I think in college, in high school, they talk about pathways like that, but if they're in a good program and they have good teachers in high school who are preparing them for the college experience, college classes, college lectures, they're preparing them to critically think, right? Mm-hmm. So you're not the answer from your college professor. You're going to get the information. They're going to tell you where to go to get the information. They're going to give you the facts, the basics, and they're going to recommend that you do some more research, right? Do some more fun. Refer to chapter this, chapter that, and whatever. And it's up to you as a student to critically think about this information so that you can answer it. The only way I think they specify that you have to have the correct answers if you're doing multiple choice questions. It's either this or this. Right. And a lot of times, if you look at those questions, right, they're about 4 questions. 2 of them seem like they could be the answer.
Could be.
Right? 2 of them could be.
Right.
But if you can critically think about the material that you've been taught and the reference, you should be able to get the correct answer.
That is correct. That is correct. I agree with that 100%. So let me play this video real quick about standardized tests, and then I'm going to go to the chat.
How do you fix education?
Absolutely. It is a complete reboot. Right now, the first thing you want to do for education is you want to make sure there is no standardized testing until high school. None whatsoever. Standardized testing is bad for several reasons. Number one, it's an unfair way of grading teachers. Right? Teachers are now graded by how their students do in a standardized test, which is silly. That doesn't mean you're a good or a bad teacher. Next, it makes a bunch of kids who are 10, 11, 12, 13 years old feel stupid because they're not good test takers. And you create now a secondary class of student for absolutely no reason. Because the next reason is standardized testing is no indication of success in life. You could be a great test taker at 12 or 13 or a terrible test taker, and it does not mean you'll be successful or not successful in life. Last is how New York State often will decide how to fund schools. So it's a way of funding schools that's also unfair. There's no advantage to standardized testing, except it means the federal government now begins to control our schools more.
So basically, he threw that part in there, which I did forget to bring up. They use standardized testing for different things. They grade the teachers on it. Well, you'll make sure that these students pass these tests, and so this is how you're going to be evaluated, or whether you're going to continue your contract with us based on your test scores. So what is that going to do? Either if it's a good teacher, they'll try to figure out a way to really get the students engaged for them to learn, right? Or you get a teacher that's going to say, hey, let me just show y'all the quick way you'll know how to answer this test.
Yes.
Right? So what initiative is it going to be for the teacher if they're getting evaluated based on how the students test? They just need to test well. That doesn't mean they retain the information, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is unfair.
And one other thing before we go to the chat, see, they also use that to determine what school gets what's money.
Yes, that's right.
And see, that's another ploy by the government on how to separate, segregate.
Out. Mm-hmm.
And that's why you got some schools in the district that are poor and they get less funding, and then they use that one rule. Well, they didn't do good on the standardized test.
And they get labeled as
another control mechanism.
Schools. They're
exactly.
Title I schools.
Right.
Exactly.
The name for them.
All right. Let's go to the chat. So we got Big Murph in the house. Hey, Big Murph, what's going on? Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Liam says school system is a daycare for the parents while they are working, whether it is in the fields or in the corporate world today. That is exactly what it is. Let me keep you busy, so I might as well have you learn this, because I'm gonna need you to come work in the. I need you to come work at my corporate office later, or my business office, or my factory, or whatever the case is.
And to add to that, Liam, that's why you get some parents that are trash, because they let their kids go to school looking like trash, because they want the teacher to be the mom and the daddy and teach them how to act. And then those same school students come home and you, not my baby. Well, your baby just jumped on 3 kids. He just brought a knife to school, a gun to school. Your baby.
That's right. That's right. Liam said they memorized it better. They may not be smarter. School gives a bunch of busy work instead of actual learning. That is correct. Yes, it is. Trap says education is systematic, is general to the area in which you inhabit. Community, church, and family system made up the difference. That is exactly it. It's actually what Stacy was saying. Sure enough.
Yes.
Hey, Edna, how you doing? Thank you for being here.
What up, fam?
Liam said, testing is flawed. The children don't actually understand the concept. They just memorize the material. And 10 to 20 years later, you have forgotten all about it anyways. Exactly.
That's why you get that book, Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader? And you be stumped. I'm like, man.
Yeah.
And you be stumped.
Darkthing, what's up, Darkthing? How you doing? Everything's going good. Thank you for being here. Liam says teachers got wigs on. Did you say that? Did you say teachers had wigs on?
And she skipped by the point where yes, I'm feeling fine, brother. I done recovered from that COVID and recovered from being in the Dominican Republic. So I had.
But you know what? He came back from the DR. He was not sick when he came back from the DR. He was not sick, but he was sick previous when he went to Texas. Yeah. So thank you for asking. What's up, Bernice? How you doing? Thank you for being here. Good evening. Liam said college is not going to hold your hand. Nope. Sure is not.
They want that money.
That's right. And Bernice said the same thing. She said these days no school is holding any of these kids' hands. Nope. Definitely is not. And Liam said teaching to the test. That's exactly what they do, Liam. They teach to the test. Yes, they do. They do. All right. So this next topic, which brings me to it, is let's talk about homework. So do you feel homework is necessary?
Yes.
And if you do feel it's necessary, why? What do you think it's going to do?
Okay. Let me say this. I was raised in a 2-parent home, which was a single-parent home. Papa was a Rolling Stone, and he was gone. But mother gave us one thing. She said, you got to leave out here some way, somehow, someday. And you want to be able to compete with the other people out there who may be smarter than you. But if you learn anything, math and English is the 2 things they're going to take you. So always be knowing how to be good at math and be able to know how to read. And those are the 2 things that's going to take you further. But she said, this is what I want you to do. Every day when you come home from school, I want you to have a study hour. While she was working a 2nd or 3rd shift job, I still had a study hour.
Okay, now studying is one thing. I'm talking about homework.
Yes. So
okay, because those they're not the same. Okay.
So let me change it up and say, well, homework from whatever I brought home from school.
There you go.
Whatever I brought home from school, I would go into it because it reinforced some of the stuff that I learned for that day. But like I said before, my parents won't trash because they wanted me to have a better understanding with life. 2 things, math and science.
Okay. So.
And English.
So you said it was going to help you remember those things.
No. A lot of times, I'm going to just say this. Most of the smart kids are self-taught. If you can articulate what's in that book, because the teacher be talking off some in left field. Like when I was in high school and I was learning algebra. Whatever the teacher put on the board, I really didn't comprehend all of that. But that algebra book had examples. Mm-hmm. So it had examples. So if I can go through example A, B, C, and D, and E, I could understand the principle. Then I realized math ain't nothing but numbers that repeat themselves. If you understand the concept, you good.
Okay.
So homework reinforced that.
Okay. Stacy, what are your thoughts?
Younger students, homework is to reinforce what they've been taught in school, the instruction they got that day or that week, right? And it also gives them practice, like with math. With math, what we called it back in the day, arithmetic, right? Arithmetic, it's practice, right? So you need homework so you can reinforce what you've learned. But for older students, high school and then college students, it broadens their knowledge. Like I always think that about homework. It's 2 different things. Once you get to high school, in your later years in college, it broadens your knowledge of whatever you've been taught. Because now, in order to complete the homework, you need additional resources. The library, the internet, different textbooks and stuff. So I think it's very, very necessary.
I believe in homework, but I don't think it should be so much to the point where the child is doing nothing but homework until it's time to eat and go to bed. I don't agree with the amount of homework. The reason I say that is because they're going to school to be taught, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if they have to come home to the point where, okay, if they don't understand, then the parents can be there to do that. Well, then guess what? Then I should be able to homeschool my child. Because if my child is not understanding it the way you're teaching it, but I'm able to put it in a way for my child to understand, then why do they need to go to your school anyway? That's just my thought. I just think that the amount of homework should not be there. I think, to be honest with you, I think that homework should be tailored to what the teacher has identified as a gap in that student's understanding. Okay, so in other words, if I'm learning a specific math, and I have section 1, 2, and 3 out of 5, and they see me in class and I've mastered it, I should not have to repeat it when I go home, because I am showing you sufficient outcomes in the class. However, you may say, hey, I want you to do sections 4 and 5 because I see you need some more help on that. So you need to practice that. That I agree with. I agree with. I don't agree with a child coming home doing stuff that they already know how to do.
Well, let me just say this. All kids came home and didn't know what they was doing. And the homework was a way to help you broaden yourself, because if your mother and father only had a high school education, how can they teach you trigonometry? How could they teach you calculus? How could they teach you physics and chemistry and all that? Because it went up that's in high school, you touch on it lightly, but that's past the general education that mom and daddy got. So I go home and sit down with a trig book. Mama, explain this to me. And she said, you explain it to me. You see what I'm saying? That's the blind leading the blind. So like I said, homework was necessary for one thing and one thing only, to stump the chump that your mom and daddy didn't know it, or it was the fact to help reinforce some of the stuff that you learned in school. But the problem with Tanya is, I agree with, where you got other teachers. If you got 5 or 6 teachers and you got homework from 5 or 6 teachers, then that's overdoing it. But teachers didn't care as long as you had the stuff from my class.
Right. And that's true. That's true. Okay. Go ahead, Stacey.
I agree with you, Tanya, and I have 2 children, and they're on different spectrums. I have one who is a gifted student, and I have a special needs student, right? Mm-hmm. So when you gave the example of maybe we can start focusing on areas they need to work on for homework. Mm-hmm. So my special needs student, they do that with him, right? But mm-hmm. my gifted student, right? Like, she got homework where there's some times where she was doing homework until like 1 a.m. in high school. Mm-hmm. And it was absolutely ridiculous. And it was just to meet the quota, right? It ties into like the standardized thing. Mm-hmm. To meet the quota of whatever they've created to make sure she be able to qualify for the pathway she's in and the program that she's in, the special program that she's in high school. And it was absolutely ridiculous. Like, and I am, like, she's up till 1 a.m. doing homework. Guess what? I'm up at the table at 1 a.m. with her. You know,
right.
Point where, like Timmy said, I don't know what she was doing. So I was on the phone, like looking at my Google and stuff, trying to figure stuff out. And there's no reason for these kids to be doing homework until 1 or 2 in the morning. Mm-hmm. I completely agree, but I've seen it both ways. So they do have situations where they do give them specific stuff to target areas where they're weakened, but I think they only focus on that with kids who have. My son has an IEP because he's special needs education, right? But they can probably broaden something like that to the entire school then. And then, rather than giving them this homework from, like you said, 5 different teachers, my kid was
exactly.
So 1 a.m. doing homework.
Yeah, no. That's too much. No, I don't agree. I don't agree with that. We had one comment regarding the homework. Liam says, homework is necessary, but it needs to be more than a packet of busy work. It should be actually learning concepts. I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Okay, so you mentioned vocational and academic pathways, and so did you. So with these vocational academic pathways, there's a lot of schools that they don't do that. They don't have that anymore. And I can tell you, I work in a very very affluential neighbor area, okay, a part of Georgia. And it is and I visit their schools just because when when you work at the hospital and your leaders and stuff, the leaders and stuff there in the companies, they always bring them to the schools to, speak to the students for career day and showcase their areas of business in case their students would like to go into that line of work. You want to be a doctor, a nurse, you want to work in healthcare, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be whatever the case is. And I remember went to one school and I noticed that they had the vocational programs. And they had that. And they said they just started it like 2-3 years ago. And I asked them, was like, just 2-3 years ago? I said, now I remember that when I was growing up, that, all the schools offered what type of pathway you wanted. Okay. You had even down to business economics. There was business students. You had professional arts. You had law. You had healthcare. I was healthcare. You had healthcare. You had like science, math. You had engineering. You had body shop, mechanics, electrical, all that type, computer science. All that stuff was like you chose your pathway in your freshman year. In your freshman year, you chose what your next 3 years was going to be focused on.
Right.
And I remember that. And that's exactly what this school had. They had chorus, performing art. And when I asked the question, one of the parents who's also, on one of the boards at the school, after I asked that question, the principal talked about it and said, yes, we didn't always have it, but we find that it's very helpful for the students and blah, blah, blah. So after the meeting was over, she came over to me with her very pretentious self. And she said, here in this city here, all of our children are expected to go to the universities. We do not promote our children doing vocational work. That's out of her mouth. And I looked at her like, okay, well, that's good. I said, and what if they don't get in? What do they do then? She said, oh, they will get in. But see, that is an example of when you hear about these kids who commit suicide and they're in depression and they're doing those things. Most of the time, it's their parents pressuring them.
Yeah.
Their parents are pressuring them to do this when it might just be too much for them at this time. But I just had to say that because I personally think that there should be both vocational and academic pathways for students at least in high school. Every person in this world is not going to be a freaking doctor. Okay, because if that's the case, who's going to be the nurse? Who's going to clean the rooms? Who's going to empty the trash cans? Who's going to drive you? Who's going to fly the plane? Who's going to, everybody has a niche. And yes, there's money in everything. I don't care what you say. If you do what you are blessed to do well, trust me, their money will follow. Okay. And so that is just the way I look at it. And based on what you were saying, you agree with the vocational and academic pathways. What about you, Stacey?
I think the mom that approached you didn't understand what a vacation is. That's the thing. I think when people think of the word vocation, learning of vocation versus academics, they don't understand what vocation is. It could be economics. It could be engineering. It could be students in an art pathway or a music pathway or whatever. That's still a vocation. I think people need to understand what vocation is. It's just a specific vocational training. Is specific training in and you get hands-on training in that.
Right.
Versus academics, where you just focus on you do focus on a particular pathway for a job, but it's different areas of studies in that job field, right? That you'll be able to apply in your career. That's the difference.
That is true.
I don't know if I'm making sense, but
yes, you do. Yes, you are.
Training is a specific job, just like with academic training for a specific job. But in vocational training, you develop the skills. Let me say skills. You develop.
That's right. Skills, that's right.
And you get more hands-on experience in that. Right. For academic training for a particular job, right? You're developing the skills, but mostly like I'm gonna say theory. You're getting the theory of it, and you're learning different parts that will affect that one job when you get the job. Am I making sense?
Right, right. Oh yeah. Now
Yeah.
see, I'm glad you touched on that because there was something I read about why they took these vocational options or pathways or like these little skills that they would teach students for a while. Because remember, I think they were in almost all schools. I don't care where you were. But they took it out because
It was our
people were making
generation.
a lot of folks was making money with those skill sets.
Listen,
You
it's
open up
our
electrical
generation.
business, mechanic business,
Yep.
all of that.
Plumbing,
Yep.
stuff like that. I
Yep.
think, and I didn't realize it, like you didn't realize until you did that visit, and it dawned on you, right? I didn't realize it until my oldest went to high school, and with her, and I don't know if sometimes I'm thankful that she was in the gifted program, so we're exposed to many other choices, right? We had options because she was gifted, but so they had you can do the STEM program or you can do the Alanis program. Right. So, excuse me. Let me just give a quick anecdote. So the Alanis program in her high school was more focused on the arts,
Okay.
music, band,
Right.
actual art, different things too. I can't get into that. But with STEM, engineering, math, technology, stuff like that.
Science, technology,
Right.
engineering, and mathematics.
Right.
Yep.
But I wonder, but only the kids that scored go back to standardized testing, right? So she had been a gifted student all through, I think, from third grade all the way through middle school and whatever. So she had the option of doing one or two of these programs, right? And I always wondered. And we had a neighbor kid who wasn't a gifted student or whatever, but she never got an option. So she just had regular public schools. When we were growing up, regular public schooling, like we still had a choice of a pathway.
That's right. That's right. You're exactly
Never
right.
understood why all the kids don't have a choice of a pathway. Like you should be able to do a vacation. They don't have that anymore. And they don't have that anymore. They're only
Right. Right.
offering it. And I think in our area, the school that my kids go to for high school, we're zoned for high school. Like I mentioned, they're a Title I school. So I'm curious to find out if on the other side, right, where they have more funding and more resources and stuff like that, maybe their kids, have all these different options. But I know for our school that our kids are zoned for, our Title I school with low funding and stuff like that, low grades for the standardized testing, right? Only the kids who scored or a certain or are gifted students have these options. And the two options they have, and I promise you, was that Alanis arts focus or STEM
Or
focus.
STEM.
Yeah, it's art. I think after our generation, they just changed everything.
Yeah, and that is true. That is true. In my daughter's school, they had the same thing. It was, but you did have other options though. It was like STEM. You had the performing arts, but they also had, they call it the advanced career group, which consisted of healthcare, um, healthcare, and like a lot of the other ones, like engineering, not engineering, like mechanical.
They don't
What was
like
the other
out
one?
here.
Home ec, like not home ec, they call it something else. When you
Food
want to
and
be a chef
nutrition.
or
Food
whatever the
and,
case is.
it's not home.
Hospitality or something or another.
They call it for it's food and nutrition wellness. I know they do have.
Okay, I think that's what it is. Okay,
They have
something similar to that. Yeah,
so the
yeah.
regular school population they have something called, I know in Georgia they have something called I don't know what it means, but it's called CTAE, and all the high schools are required to have that. And I think that has taken the place of what we used to call vocational classes, skill training, right? And these
Right.
CTAE classes, they have like lawn safety class, or they
Yeah,
have business and technology, and that food and
right.
wellness. I'm sure they have others, but they all kind of fall in that. But
Mm-hmm.
really, when we talk about vacation, I know when I do talk about vacation, I'm talking about mechanic, plumbing,
Right,
stuff that would be
right.
coming up.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I think we all agree on that one. Bernice says, I think homework is based on the curriculum these teachers are given. So, it's not really, it's whatever they said you need to, this is what you need to teach. Now, there are some teachers that will go, yeah, I'm gonna teach that, but I'm gonna teach you this as well, and it's just something extra that they do. Liam says, I went to a school that had a financial program. Okay, now my high school, it wasn't called financial, it was just called business economics. That's what mine was called, and that's what the finance piece was in there. But it was also about investments and like all business, anything business.
Her high school was how to be a pimp or pimpess.
You know what? Don't talk about my school.
Don't worry about it.
William said they had some Vo-Tech high schools in the city too. Yes, they did. They had some in New York. You're exactly right. Yes, they did. Bernice said, when I was in school, they had vocational classes. My husband took woodworking classes and brick masonry.
Yeah,
exactly. She also said he ended up becoming an engineer. See,
yep, look at that.
Exactly. And believe it or not, a lot of, especially after the slave era and stuff, a lot of Blacks, when they had their businesses, a lot of them was based on those vocational skills that they learned in school.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They were carpenters, so they opened up their own businesses. They were electricians, they were mechanics, they were servant type work, right? Is what the community would call it, but it brought in all the money, just like today. Those are the ones bringing in the money, and those things are not like common sense for you to know, because the number one thing you don't want to do is something happens with your wiring and you think you can go in and do it yourself, unless you've had some training or went to school for it. Because you may think, oh my God, my light switch don't work. Let me call an electrician. That electrician come in, take the little plate off and say, oh, the little things ain't connected to the damn screw no more. So it's not conducting electric current. That's why it don't work. So all they do is open it up and go, oh, twist a little thing, probably take them about 2-3 minutes, however long it take the plate off, screw it, put it together, and then put it back on. Then they want to charge you $1,200. $1,200 because you didn't know something that they knew. That's where the money is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, let's go
that's
to
the difference between that skills training and the theory. Because I can theorize that I can fix that. Right.
Well, look. You can theory all you want to. You mess up your house, your home insurance won't pay for it because you was theorizing.
I can theorize, right? But I don't got the skills to do it. That's the difference. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's because some of these we touched on already. Like we talked about funding. Let's talk about. We don't need to talk about uniforms too much because that's really preference, and it's not like every school is doing it, just certain ones. But
just trash.
Let's talk about school choices. Public school versus private school, regular college versus Ivy League college. So I'm going to play these two videos back to back. And I want you to tell me your thoughts on, do you feel school choices matter? Does it make a difference? Or do you feel one is better than the other? And when I say better, I'm talking about education, not the perception, the actual education. So let me go to that.
I get asked this question a lot. Are private schools really that much better than public schools? Most private schools are really just public schools wearing lipstick. Hold on. I did not arrive at this conclusion on a whim, so hear me out. In many instances, private schools are just a smaller sized copy of the industrialized system from Prussia. There's still the super long, unnecessary school day of 7 hours. There's still the homework. In fact, in private schools, those kids get bogged down. Some may think the social environment is better in private schools than public, but you would get an equal amount of people saying, no, it could be equally as toxic or more toxic. I saw even more academic performance anxiety in my private school students. And of course, in both types of schools, you have that unhealthy comparison among peers. This next one is a biggie for me. If you have a kid that doesn't fit in the box, maybe they are on an IEP, ADHD, some type of learning challenge, most private schools cannot adequately accommodate or have the staff or expertise to help in those particular areas. So not only do those kids have to struggle through that 7-hour school day, but then the parents have to hire outside help after school hours when honestly they should be doing what they love and are good at. Here's the biggie and the one that you've been waiting for. Let's talk about the academics. Many private schools, not all, but many, actually sell themselves on the fact that they only use accredited curriculum and only hire certified teachers. Well, isn't that what public schools are doing? I kid you not, I was there. Most curriculum is the same. Of course, there are those special schools that are practicing particular educational philosophies and such, but if we're honest, most private schools are not those. I'm not incredibly interested in a private school saying, hey, come over here. We're government approved. Because we all know how that's working out. But there are benefits. Parents have more power at private schools. That's a good thing. You can choose schools that do have particular philosophies or religious affiliations. A lot of parents want that. And the last one isn't really talked about a lot, but I have to be honest because I was in that world. Many people choose private schools for the prestige and connections. Love it or hate it, there it is. I'm not saying all private schools are bad, but please don't assume every private school is a huge step up.
Top universities, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, are sold as meritocracies, but behind the ivy-covered walls lies a system rigged from the start. Elite schools are gate-kept by legacy admissions, giving priority to students whose parents also went there. Translation: if your family's rich and well-connected, you skip the line. At Harvard, legacy students are nearly 6 times more likely to be accepted. And many of those same students were funneled through private schools with tutors, test prep, and college consultants. Advantages the working class literally can't afford. Meanwhile, nepotism isn't just accepted, it's institutionalized. Wealthy families donate buildings, endow charities, and suddenly, their kid gets in. It's not education, it's investment, it's inheritance, disguised as merit. And even when a working class student beats the odds and gets in, they face cultural alienation, crushing debt, and systemic barriers their elite peers will never know. The result? Elite schools become pipelines, not for talent, but for power preservation. They fast-track the sons and daughters of billionaires into positions of influence, leaving the working class locked out and buried in loans. Because college isn't always about intelligence, it's about access. And that access is guarded like a fortress.
All right. Thoughts on that?
I love that piece.
Who wants to go first?
To me. You hear me
What'd
talking?
you say?
I love that. Can you send that to me?
Yes.
Yes, thanks.
So what are your thoughts? Public school, private school, regular college, or Ivy League college? Is one a better education than the other?
Well, I'll go first. I don't think it's about an educational thing. I think it's about a preference. Because you go to law school now, there's some great law schools out there, but if you put Harvard on your resume, you're going to get a better look than you put that you went to Winston-Salem State.
Right.
So I'm saying, so what's accepted is going to give you the leg up. So that right there does this thing about for as college goes.
Well, we're just talking about education right now. We're talking about what you're learning, academics. Right. I'm not talking about what opportunities are there.
But I'm just saying, so y'all have to make that point. The education is the same.
Okay.
The name is what make it, the perception of the name was separated. Okay. The education is the same. All colleges are most on the same level. You teaching the same basic courses, the same basic. I mean, because you went to Harvard don't mean you learning alien technology or you learning an alien language. You still learning the same language that you learned at Harvard that you could have got from Winston-Salem State or North Carolina A&T or any other college. The language, the education part is the same. Now, the choices are dependent on how you set up financially, because that once again, what you pay to go to Harvard ain't what you're gonna pay to go to Winston-Salem State. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Money gonna separate everything. Now, the knowledge part, like I said, the knowledge is even across the board. You might have somebody teaching it who can't speak good English. That don't make it different. But The choices is the simple fact of where you want to go from there after you pass through college, because that's going to determine your choice, whether you want to be rich or whether you want to be poor, whether you want to have or whether you want to have not, whether you want to be hefty or whether you want to be glad. Trash is trash. That's my point.
What are your thoughts, Stacy?
I like to give you guys examples, personal examples for me. And I explained to you guys, both my kids are on different spectrums, right? When my oldest was going into middle school from elementary school, she was at the top of her grade and everything. A teacher at the middle school that she was zoned for approached me and said, and her son was graduating with my daughter from elementary school, and she said, why are you going to send her to the middle school? Um, I can tell you because she was a teacher at the middle school my daughter was going to, and she didn't think it was fitting for her son and my daughter. They were both top 2 students in the elementary school. I said, well, you teach there. You don't think it's appropriate? You teach there. You're a 6th grade teacher.
Right.
They're coming out of 5th grade to go to 6th grade. You teach there. You draw a paycheck from them. You don't think it's good enough for your student, your son? She said no. They have criminals in there.
Oh.
They have kids. They have kids swinging around the chandelier if they're not in the special classes. I said, well, okay. Well, how much are they? Now I'm panicking, right? How much are they charging over there? And she gave me a price that was absolutely ridiculous for my budget. I said, well, I'm gonna take my chances over here, right? Fast forward, her kid went to the private school. My kid went to the regular public school. Guess what? They came out similar places when it was time to go to high school. Both
Right.
were at the same place. And guess what? She took her kid out of the private school and put him into regular high school.
Right.
One example. For my son, special needs, it's very difficult with the funding and the resources for special needs students in the public school system. So it's tempting to try to find the funding, and there's some provisions. It's something called SB 10. There's some provisions by the state that will give you a partial scholarship if you qualify for it to get them started to go into a private school, and then you just make up the difference, right? The difference with private schools and public schools is there's a requirement to be transparent about grades, academics, and resources. At face value, it seems as if they're getting so much more because they have all these other extracurricular stuff and whatever for special needs students. But you need to dig into the details to see how they measure up with special needs students and their access to all the things they need to just be able to have life skills when they come out of school. Am I making sense?
Right.
So I'm saying all of that to say this. I think that it's equal. Public schools, private schools are equal, and it depends on what's happening at home. So we have to reinforce as parents that education and homework and showing up and doing what they do before you go to school, those things matter to have successful school. Right? So yeah, the parents are involved with the things that are going on in the private schools and stuff like that. You may feel more secure because you feel like you have a say, but it's really equal. And what you don't understand is there's a lot more pressure from the government in the public school system than there is in the private school system. So a lot of times they get away with not doing what they're supposed to be doing because nobody has eyes. They just figure if the kids are spending $50,000 to go here, and this is a great school and it has a name, that means they should be doing well.
Right.
More pressure on public schools than they do private schools, and they get away with falling beneath and just putting up on their website and stuff like that. They're doing great. They're not as transparent as public schools because you can access public school information quicker than you can in private school.
Right.
That's personal experience.
Okay. With me, I believe the education is the same. I agree in terms of what you said, as well as what you said, Stacy. I believe both things. I believe the education is the same. However, it depends on what you're trying to get out of the school, right? Like, what is it you're trying to do? Because socioeconomic status it exists in the schools, and that's some of the differences, right? So you can go to public school with a certain level of, whatever in there, and usually it's, lower class to middle to up, like a little up to upper class, right? And then yes, you most likely will get the same at private school, except the lower, the people who can't really afford to go, they're usually living school poor because they are already trying to live in an area or be in an area or working 2-3 jobs to pay for the child to go. So they may not be able to join in those extracurricular social activities, which then goes back to what the video was saying, that some of those students who are lucky enough to get in some of those type Ivy League schools or be able to go to those private schools by whatever those means are, whether your grades were high, your everything a combination, everything was good, or if you was just, your parents just was able to round up enough money to be able for you to go. Socially and culturally, are you really in the mix, right? Because as we all know, people who live in different ways have different expectations. They have different ways that they move, right? They have different ways of things that they have. They have fun different. They do things different. Things that they expect are different, right? But then your child is then going to feel like either less than, they can't do it, they can't go because literally I'm here for the education because that's all I can afford. But I am not able to really enjoy the actual school and the festivities because I only have enough money for this tuition. I don't live this life. I'm here specifically because my parents want me to be exposed to whatever you all are exposed to, so I can have at least a leg up to understand what's coming down the pipes. But what some of those parents don't understand is the only way for your child to really, I would say, get that mental private school, higher socioeconomic status type atmosphere, your child's gonna have to be in private school from day one. So they understand that culture from early. So that's all they know. So then they can thrive in those type of atmospheres versus you've been to public school all throughout your grade school, and then all of a sudden you're in the middle of Harvard, and then what? They getting picked up in Mercedes Benz. They talking about, hey, we gonna go on spring break, and they going on a yacht around for 2 weeks around the Virgin Islands, and you going to Florida. I'm just to Cancun. I'm just saying it hit different, right? And so you don't feel included. People then do stuff because they want to be included. It's a cultural shock for some students, So that's just how I look at it. It's the same, but it's just a matter of what circle you end up in, what circle you're looking to be in as an adult. That determines where you are. And just like TJ said, people see certain names on the resume and they automatically assume that you are smart. But no. You may not be goddamn smart. You just may know how to test, or matter of fact, maybe you didn't even go to class. Right? Maybe you didn't even go to class, but you got through it and you graduated, and you might have graduated at the bottom of your damn class, but it still say Harvard University or Yale University on your resume.
That's right.
Don't mean you smart.
Right. Just like they had that series on called Suits. You saw your boy Mike. He didn't graduate from Harvard. He was finished, but he was educated, smart, was way past Harvard. And everybody else, some of the other people that went to Yale and all that stuff, but because he's mentioned Harvard on his resume, even though he didn't graduate.
Right, he just got pulled. But go ahead, Stacey, while I pull up some comments.
I know you got to go to the chat, but I wanted to add with private school and public school, right? Let's go back to that. You mentioned the Ivy League schools. Fun fact, a lot of those legacy kids, a lot of those kids that they have in those Ivy League schools come from the prep schools, the private schools. It's been a career since they were like 5. So they didn't even have, they knew that they were going to go to Harvard anyway. They knew they were going to go to Yale and Princeton and everything like that. The other thing, the other fun fact about that too is there are kids whose parents, I'm not going to give a demographic, but there are parents who they work like 3 or 4 jobs to make sure that they can afford to send those kids in whatever areas those prep schools are, northeast, right? There's some here in Georgia where we live at. They work 3 and 4 jobs even if they can't afford to pay their rent or their mortgage to make sure the kids get into those schools. So they get exposure to these kind of rigorous classes or preparatory classes. Then you know how to accent. So they can test out and test well to get into those schools. Right? So it's different. So it's good to put them in the private school because you get certain access, right? But it's bad, like you said, because we didn't grow up like this. Like, well, I went to elementary school regular, I went to middle school regular, but now I'm going to high school. And my mom or my dad wants to make sure that I get to Harvard, so that they're putting me somewhere where, like, I'm wearing the same shoes every day. You understand what I'm saying? I don't get the vacations and stuff, you know, but I can meet them mentally where they're at. So these kids are really smart going in, but a lot of times they lack the social skills to be able to function.
That's right.
I just wanted to add that.
You're right. You're right. Liam says it will be a shocking theory. This is when you said you can theoretically change your light switch or whatever. He said it's going to be a shocking theory because I guess you was going to electrocute yourself. Bernice was laughing at Liam's joke. Liam said most private schools are religious, and it's true. They Catholic, Methodist, Protestant, all different types of religions. Liam said, let them have their schools. It's okay. Yes, it is okay. They can have their schools. I have been to both public and private schools, and the only difference I saw was whether one was secular or religious. That is true. That is true. I know someone, Bernice says, I know someone whose child went to private school saying the child was going to do great things and the child hated it and refused to go to college. Can you imagine paying all that money for all that private school just for someone to say they don't want to go? Like you trying to be, but then again, that's where that's when it's hard because as a parent, right, you're learning things while you're growing up. You're basing everything that you're doing based on your experiences. And then you have a child or children and your assumption is that it's the same for them. When in reality, these kids are most of the time, they're not growing up the same way you did. They're not growing up under the same circumstances as you did. What they need to be worried about or do is different than what you had to be worried about or do when you were growing up. So, but what some mistakes that us parents make is we assume that what most of the time what we give our kids is what we wanted for ourselves that we didn't have. And so you get parents who do all of this and it's like, this is what you're going to do. Now, is this just because this is what they want to do, or this is what you want them to do? Maybe because you didn't do it or couldn't do it, so you want to push the dream onto them, or do you want them to do it because you feel that it's best for them to do it, right? So I can imagine how that would feel, Bernice. Liam said the main differences can be money. The schools with money, whether it's private or public, can make a difference on the learning versus the one with less funding. That is true. That is 100% true.
Because you get better textbooks.
Exactly. Well, everybody got Google nowadays. Well, I take that back because not everybody got internet and not everybody got cell phones and stuff, but the majority of people have a way of getting it. So Bernice said she agrees with Liam. All right, let's see here. Liam said, is a Harvard degree worth more than, say, University of Central Florida or Georgia Tech? Yes, I'm assuming so.
Yes.
I mean, it
Yes.
depends. Like I tell my daughter's a Georgia Tech student. And I told her this when she decided to change her major. I said, well, you might want to change your school. And the reason I say that is because when you think of Georgia Tech, there are just certain skill sets that you automatically assume that these kids and these students know. Now, yes, Georgia Tech students have a rigorous undergrad, which means it's very, very, they have very high science and math classes, period, point blank. You're going to take the same classes as any other, but it's going to be more science and math because you're at Tech than if you went to Clayton State, right? Or something like that. Because it's Georgia Tech. Because if you're at Georgia Tech, then that means you're trying to get into computers, technology, neuroscience, engineering. That's what Georgia Tech is. You know what I mean? She changed her title. She changed her major to psychology and neuroscience. Okay, well, that's fine. But what piece are you going to do with it that equates to Georgia Tech?
Right.
You know what I mean? So you're going to have to make sure that whatever you're doing with your Georgia Tech, that there's at least something involved with what you're getting out of Georgia Tech. Because if not, then maybe you should have went to Spelman, or you just should have went to UGA or transferred to UGA, or maybe even to Morehouse. Or, well, she can't go to Morehouse undergrad.
Right.
It's only all males for undergrad. For Morehouse, all female undergrad at Spelman, but then for graduate school, you can do either or. Because when you think about certain professions, you're looking for certain schools. And so it usually is important about that. But with Harvard, you know, when someone says they went to Harvard and they got some technology degree, I'm not going to take that serious. Now, you tell me you a doctor or a lawyer or something, or that, no, you're like a academic professor or teacher or something, that's a different story. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're going for engineering or technology and someone went to Harvard versus Georgia Tech, I'm going to take the Georgia Tech student all day. You see what I'm saying? So it just depends on what skill set are you looking for. It doesn't mean that student has it just because they went to the school. Remember that.
It's all in the name. And then you got to think about regions too. Like a lot of people like that are Northeast, like they're not going to recognize the value of a Georgia Tech degree.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So we know in the South, you know, from Northeast, like a lot of people don't even know what Georgia
MIT.
Tech is.
It would be MIT up Northeast,
exactly. Right? Exactly. You know, it's
and then Caltech.
I have to California. Add to the reason why. Yes, but I wanted to add to. They do get exposure to a lot of research that starts their career. So the reason why these names matter, like a Georgia Tech versus a GSU or a Georgia Tech stuff, they get exposure to certain things within their undergrad, going for their undergraduate degree that a GSU student would never get exposed to.
Right.
Harvard student will get exposed to certain things that a UConn student would not get exposed to.
Right.
Research, you know, in their medical fields or becoming a lawyer and stuff like that. So it does matter, and there's a lot more funding. And now it's all exposed now with the current administration that we have. How much funding goes into certain schools for certain things. So a lot of schools that's not a Harvard, they don't get the research funding that's necessary that'll get them into the medical journals and stuff like that. Right? So that's why them have. If I'm making sense.
All right, let's see. All right. So we're down to the last two things. This one is, what are your thoughts about year-round schooling? Do you think that students should have year-round schooling with just frequent breaks? Or is the school's schedule now satisfactory, or do you think that they can do with less, with no breaks?
Me, myself, I don't think year-round schooling is necessary because, once again, the teachers are not necessarily teaching their curriculum out of the textbook. They're teaching out some of it, what they pulling out the air or whatnot. So you cannot turn around and put that child through a year-round schooling, expect them to learn any more when they will learn with the school spectrum out now, because the teachers don't teach the textbook. They teach what's coming off their dome, which is trash. So,
well, okay, I'll touch on that, but go ahead, Stacy. What are your thoughts with year-round schooling? Should it be shorter with no breaks? Is it fine the way it is with breaks, or do you think it should be longer with more frequent breaks?
I think it's fine the way it is with whatever breaks they already have. The kids are getting more breaks than we had. These kids nowadays are getting more breaks than we had. Every time you turn around is another break. Like, I think maybe I just got to look at it and compare. But my biggest thing is teacher burnout, student burnout.
That part right there.
That's all I got for you. Teacher burnout and student burnout. They need that summer. Switch it to the winter. I don't care, but they do need them 8 weeks where they could gather themselves, the teachers, right? And the students do need to have their brains take a break.
Right.
So I think year-round school, I am so not for that, because the teachers are going to get burnt out. The kids are going to get burnt out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dang, I was trying to remember what you said that I wanted to touch on.
Oh, was the part that, like I was saying, the teachers don't.
Oh, you said they're teaching off the dome.
They're teaching off the dome, yes.
So my thing is this. Let's say the teacher is looking at the textbook, and the text, they feel like the textbook is not really doing the kids justice, right? They want to make sure that these students get a better education than what that textbook is giving them, because there are some teachers who do that. Okay. So what we equate to teaching off the dome, right? Because what if that teacher is a very true educated teacher? That teacher may have came from Columbia University, right? Or NYU or whatever. If that teacher knows more and they're teaching at the grade school level, and they want to give those students some form of a way to retain that information better so it does apply to themselves in the world, is that teaching off the dome?
Okay, let me break it down a little further. I have an engineering degree, so math and science has been my subject all the way through high school. The textbook teach the same curriculum from high school all the way till I graduated from college. The thing about it is the examples was there. It's math and science. You can't change the math and the science.
Okay, well, you're just talking about math and science.
Wait a minute. Let me finish though. 2 + 2 gonna always give you 4. But the thing about it is, but when you get these teachers who teach outside of the textbook, you done took a second branch. So when you leave high school and go to college, you sit in there and the college professor put some on the board that you should have picked up from high school. You didn't get it because your teacher was off the dome.
Okay, so that's science and math. That's a given. 2 + 2 is going to always be 4.
But not just math and science. It's with any curriculum. English, history, all of that's the same. It's what you learn in history in the 8th and the 9th grade. It's the same thing you're going to learn in history when you get to college. They can't turn around and say Eli Whitney didn't make the cotton gin. Okay. They can't turn around and say General Ford didn't make the first car. It's the same. But when you turn around and say Ford didn't make the first car, really Rufus made it. Okay. And the people don't know about Rufus, so I'm gonna go and let you know about Rufus.
Okay, well, no. Okay, I agree, but then part of me doesn't agree. So when I say if a teacher is teaching off the dome, I'm talking about expanding. So let me correct, maybe I said it wrong. if you get a teacher who is going to expand from what's in the textbook, meaning, they'll let you know, okay, Thomas Edison did the light bulb.
Right.
Because that's what all the books say, because that's what they all want the books to say. But he didn't make the damn fuse, because without the fuse, he wouldn't have no goddamn light bulb.
Okay.
But they don't talk about who made the fuse. Because back then, that person who made the fuse didn't have patented rights. Because legally, they couldn't get patented because they wasn't identified as a human being. They were property.
Right.
So they made the fuse.
Right.
So all they did was use that fuse, and they put a little bulb over it and said, oh, it's the light bulb now.
Right.
So everybody in the history books know it's who made the light bulb? Thomas Edison.
Right.
Well, if you get a teacher who's willing to expand on it to give you a broader knowledge, that's what I meant when you said off the dome. I got it. Because the test, you're right. If they're going to test you on the basics, teach the basics, and then you can expand. I agree with
because you take that, what you learn from the 9th grade, you build on it in the 10th grade, and you build on it to the 11th grade, and you build on it to the 12th grade, and so on. But if you get a teacher that got you out there on a whole different branch, when you get to the 10th grade, you're going to be miss some steps. And I don't care if it's math, history, whatever, you're going to be missing steps because he didn't teach you the regular steps.
I agree.
The education, what we learn is something that we all probably, somebody said a baby is born with all the knowledge. And as you get older, you forget. But school kind of reinforced, and then that's why you got some kids that are geniuses at 6 and 5, maybe not. But what the deal is they can maintain more. So you can read a book and maintain everything you read in the book, but you can also comprehend it. But when you get teachers that do their own thing, I think, to me personally, I think it does more harm than good.
Well, in elementary school and stuff, yes. But usually in college, they can do that because they're usually the ones creating those tests.
Right. Well, the thing about it is the math, science, or whatever that you take at one college is still going to be the same at another college. But if the teacher don't teach that and he teaches something totally different, then your learning curve is different.
Okay. Stacy?
Remember, they're teaching you to, I've got water in the background. Remember, they're teaching you to critically think about the information. So you're still,
right.
So I disagree that you're not getting the same information. Like, they're being held accountable to make sure they're giving you the correct information. So you're getting the facts. If it's engineering, like if they have engineering, you're getting the facts in engineering. Like you said, the light bulb was a great example, right? But they're also probably giving you like experience. This is, like ways how to use it. Tanya mentioned a while back about the whys of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people's styles are changing. It's just like everything in life. Teaching styles have changed. So the way they taught us is different from how they're teaching the kids now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the teachers that are coming out is not the generation of teachers that taught us. So as styles change, teaching styles change.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same information. It's just the style in which they're teaching is different, and they're probably figuring out ways to make kids think more critically about the information.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Right. I agree with that.
Liam says Las Vegas has year-round schooling, but is with more breaks. Okay, so that means they do year-round. I think there should be more breaks because they aren't learning anymore. I think they should be required to travel and see the world because that learning is better than any classroom. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that because at the end of the day, textbook is just textbook. If your experience helps you learn how to apply it. Okay. Like I put you this way. I've been in my healthcare career for 30 years plus now. Right. And I can tell you, do I know everything? No. And I am still learning things now. And this is way into my career. You know why? Because your experiences will cause you to learn different things. Because guess what? If you are working somewhere for 10 years and you are in that same little area, you're only going to experience what's happening in that area if you don't go outside of it, right? So usually you pick up, you get different boss, different supervisors, different leadership, different areas that you work, so different experiences. And when you get different experiences, sometimes you begin to understand and go, you know what? Just like I was saying about, like, your A may be an A over in that school, but it might be a C over there. Let me tell you, do you know how eye-opening it is when, or a shock it is when you think you are A student all this time, and then you run up into a whole nother group of people and you realize your ass is a B? You like, what you mean the B? I've been an A for this month. What you mean?
Ma'am.
You see what I'm saying? But you have to understand that, and that's where that comes from. That's where that going away and coming back and moving over here and coming back, and that's when you get a new appreciation for when you get these people coming into the workforce now, and they're like just jumping from job. They like, yeah, okay, I'm here. Let me get everything I can get. Okay, good. Let me go someplace else. Let me see what they got going on. Let me get that and learn over. Oh, let me go over here and let me get that. And next thing you know, in probably 10 years, they don't learn more than you learned in 30 years, because they done been exposed to different experiences with different people in different areas and in different scenarios, which is very different, right? So that is true. That traveling is important, but not just like travel, just like on a plane, but basically getting out and seeing the world in different aspects in whatever it is you're doing, education, work, whatever.
However, with traveling, I'd love for them to be exposed to, like, be able to travel and stuff like that, and see how it's applied in different areas. But it depends on demographics again. What if there's no funding in the public schools? Like, in
Right.
our area,
Right.
70% of the kids are not going to be able to take the opportunity to go travel.
Right. That's true.
So unless the government is providing that funding, that won't even work for them.
Right.
It's great. It's a great idea. And it goes back to public versus private. Maybe in the private schools, because a lot of people are paying to send the kids to school.
Mm-hmm.
Funding there for them to be able to take a school trip,
Right.
and get that experience for whatever they learn, right? But in a public school, in a Title I school, like where my kids go to a Title I school, there's no funding for that. And
right, because
it's a great idea, but unless they have the money to do it, not all the kids, it goes right back to the same thing we started with. Not all the kids gonna get that experience that is so necessary. Know that it is, right?
But you know what? If you think about it, if everybody could get it, then what's going to make people different?
Oh, I completely agree. We're in a functional society.
Exactly. In other words, somebody got to be the well-traveled, and some people got to be the not well-traveled, right? Somebody got to be the haves, and somebody got to be the have-nots, right?
Yes,
so
I completely agree.
It is not going to be equal, and it's just like people who have Medicaid, right? If they got bad eyesight, what does Medicaid pay for? Glasses. They are not paying for contacts. I'm just saying, because their whole thing is contacts is an option, is not necessary. But you do need glasses, and glasses cost less. So unless it is medically necessary for you to use contacts versus glasses, what's necessary are your glasses.
Right.
And that's all they're going to give. That's all the government's going to give you is what is necessary. Why do you need to travel over there? Oh, well, I want to advance my knowledge. Well, then you need to afford to do that.
You need to be able to pay for it. Yeah.
Exactly. There's not going to be funding from them for that. Because that would be advancing to do whatever, unless they are getting something out of doing it.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
They gotta get some out of it.
Exactly. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Let me see. Oh, I'm sorry. Darn it, Liam. Let's see. They could go to Egypt and see the pyramids, see the pyramid hands on, or go to the Louvre and see the art and lean through world experiences. That is true, but that's not going to be for everybody to be able to do, Liam. That is true, but that's what I'm saying. There are people who are going to have the ability to have those experiences and those who have not. Okay. And that's just the way it is. Everybody doesn't have the money. Everybody doesn't have the funding.
And Uncle Sugar ain't going to pay for it.
No, they're not. Unless you're going to get some rich philanthropist that wants to donate money specifically for certain students. And guess what? It's going to be for a certain number of students. And those students are going to have to reach a criteria in order to be added to that group to be able to participate in that.
You know, with students who already have that built into their curriculum every year, those prep students I mentioned, those prep schools with those kids, those prep schools who farm kids that go to the Harvard and the Yales and the Princetons. This is how they learn. They have those experiences. Like they get to go to the Louvre and they get to go. They do all these things already. So they're already exposed to a lot of things that our kids, you know, I know my kids personally will never get experience. I'm gonna have to show my kids the pictures of it,
right?
And research. And no, it's not a bad thing. And take a trip to the. I've done that, and take a trip.
Right.
It just depends on how you want as a parent to level the playing field as much as you can. And then us as parents who really like take it real serious, like listen. I'm gonna try the best thing I can do is to level the place to expose my kids as much as I can.
Right.
So you take them to the museum, you see the stuff, but I can't take them to the Louvre in France. You know.
Right.
Show them pictures. You know, I can show them articles and stuff like that, but it depends on how much and how much time. Well, I have time. Well, I have time because I'm a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
Mom doesn't have that time. A mom who has two moms doesn't have that time. Right. You know, so it all goes back to demographics.
Yep. Agree. Yeah. Bernice said that some teachers will only go by the textbooks. There's only some teachers that will only go by the textbook, meaning whatever's in this book is all I'm gonna teach you, and that's it.
Well, but what you got to understand about textbooks, you got your first edition, your second edition, your third edition, your fourth edition, your fifth edition, your sixth edition. So all you need is teach that the textbooks evolve. The textbook will evolve. So, but the thing about it is, what you learn from Mr. Jones in the 9th grade is not going to carry you in the 10th grade because you're on the 6th edition of that textbook, and you was on the 3rd edition when Mr. Jones would teach you about that other branch.
Okay.
See, and that's what I'm saying. From what I've learned from my years being on the planet, and for me going to school was the outlet. But I became a straight A student. As long as it was in that textbook, I can reinforce it because I can see it, comprehend it, and I can go back and learn it. Not memorize it, learn it. Because when you go through those different editions, they got different examples. And if you can teach by the examples, you can go home and teach your mama how to do calculus and all that. They got the right examples in there. You can go home and teach that grandpa. You know what I'm saying? The book evolves and it teaches you how to evolve with the book. But you can't evolve with those teachers with their own independent view of what the book is interpreting.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
Liam says teach the required steps first, then you can teach the rest of the stuff.
Yes,
that's basically
I agree. I agree with that. I agree with that.
I agree with that too.
Yes.
So Liam said they can go to their own city art museum or whatever in their state or city. Like there's other ways to learn something outside of the classroom.
Yes,
it does. Liam also said it depends on how much the teacher or professor has time enough to add off the dome facts.
Right.
Because if they got them trying to do 11 million things, they're not going to have the time to really, if they wanted to do more for the students, they could.
Well,
you know,
most teachers have a syllabus. So you have a syllabus that you get. So you're going to learn this from this part of the school year, and by you get to this part of the school year, you have learned all of this.
Right.
But some teachers don't stick by the syllabus. They deviate. And when you deviate, then you miss stuff. And then when you move on to the next grade, a block that you should have learned, you missed it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, they can. Well, he's saying they can teach the syllabus, but
Right.
they have to add on top
If they need to add. If they want
right.
to add some of their own.
Right.
Spin,
Got
yes.
it. But at
least teach the basics.
Right. Yes. That's what he said.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. You still argue?
No, I'm not arguing.
Okay, but you keep repeating.
No. Because I'm just saying, because it's very frustrating when you got kids that are lost in chemistry. There's only one chemical table. So how can you know it in high school? You get to college and you completely lost.
I have an answer to that. I have an answer to that. Can I tell you what the answer is?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because in order to complete their homework, they're using AI. They're using question AI. They're getting the information in the class, they're getting the instruction, and then they have all this homework to complete, right? And now they can go to Google, they can go to this. They're not
technology, everything. Like for instance, calling somebody and they call you 4 or 5 times a day and you don't know their phone number.
Exactly.
You tell me why.
Technology.
You are on that phone 3-4 times a day, speaking to this person 3-4 times a day. They call you 3-4 times a day. It is faithful. Technology. And when somebody asks you what is their phone number, I don't know.
That's trash.
It speaks to what you say. They just push a button and it's like the microwave. It just gives it to you. Teachers. You're not learning nothing.
I keep telling you, it's not the teachers. I mean, I'm not sure if they're checking into them that they're supposed to, but there's some type of accountability, right? Whether it's a standardized testing that's going to separate the know-it-alls and the know-it-nots, right? But there's some type of testing to let you know whether or not the kids are getting what they're supposed to get. And they do that from elementary, middle school, and high school, whether we agree or not that they should just be high school at this point, right? But that's already happening. So we know there's a standard that's already set up that's going to tell us whether or not you're teaching what you're supposed to teach, and the kids know what they're supposed to know. But at some point, by the time they get to high school, because I don't know if it's going to happen in middle school yet, but I know for a fact in high school right now, even teachers are telling you, well, they got to get this stuff done. And they'll give you a list of stuff, list of websites to go to get the answers. What? I've never heard a teacher tell me that before my kid had to do like algebra. And I'm like, well, you special needs kid, like he don't know how to do it. He can't even write. Like he can't figure out like traditional sense. She says, well, you can go to golf, you can go to question AI, you can go to this, like 4 different places, and I thought it was wrong. But they have these tools already. So just imagine college.
Yeah.
Just that's imagine they have all these things that you can say. I forgot what the name of the thing is. It's brand new to me. Something I heard a couple of weeks ago. It's brand new to me. And they just say it into the phone and it gives you all the answers. You just ask a question and it gives you all the answers. You know? So I don't really think we can put that all on the teacher. They have to teach certain things because that's the curriculum. That's what the standard is. And then after that, the kids got to be able to learn it. And then they got to show you that they know it.
That's right.
And if they don't know it's not on the teacher, man. It's not always on the teacher not teaching the same stuff.
That's true.
That's right.
Liam said it also depends if it is 50-minute period per period versus 90 minutes per class period. College is like 2-hour block for most part, but 2 or 3 times a week. So,
that makes a difference.
The amount of time that the teachers have to teach what they can is a lot of times is helpful. But in actuality, what I think is with teachers is to me, a good teacher is someone who can assess their class, not from a what you know or what you don't know perspective, but assess their class to figure out how does my students learn. And once they know how their students can learn, they can teach them anything. And those kids will soak it up like a sponge. And you'll be able to run through that syllabus and be able to go off the dome, off the books to say, yes, I'm going to show you this. I'm glad y'all got this in 2 weeks instead of 6 weeks. So I'm going to use these other 4 weeks to expand on it. So when you get to the next 2 or 3 grades, you'll already know some of this other stuff because you all are able to retain it and be able to take it on. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, so you'll already know. You know, I think that is the primary goal I feel of a teacher is the first thing is to find out how do my students learn. And most people, some are visual. They got to see it. Some need to hear it. Some have to say it. Some have to write it down. You see what I'm saying? So if you're teaching certain things in a certain way, then to sort of help when you have like a classroom full of students who learn differently, if you can find a way to portray your lessons in a way where all of them can sort of grasp it, okay, then that'll be fine. But also not making one student do something just because the other student has to. Okay, well, look, I need you to learn this. You learn it this way. I need you to write this. Hey, you know what? You're visual. I need you to look at this. Okay, hey, you need to hear this. I need you to come tell me and recite this to me. I need you to tell me what we talked about. You understand what I'm saying? So that way, each of those kids are learning. And I know it's not as easy as said than done. I am not a teacher.
I'll tell you where those teachers are, and it's so unfortunate that it's not universal. Then where those teachers are with the special education classrooms with the special students, because a classroom full of kids that have IEPs. And an IEP is an individualized educational plan that's created every year for each student. So those teachers have a full classroom of all these kids that have, each of them have an IEP or they have a 504 plan or something, right? But they have to teach them according to what this plan says that was set up by the board, the teachers, the therapists, and the parents. And they have to teach each student according to that plan. And those teachers are amazing. Unfortunately, it's not a universal thing. It will be so perfect if it was universal from elementary to college. But right now, the only place that those teachers exist are those teachers in a special education setting where they have they're smaller classrooms, right? But each student learns different. So a student might learn by communicating the information to him. Like my son. My son is a kid that doesn't really learn visual hands-on. But if you talk to him about the stuff, you interact with him about the stuff, like you've met my son, like he's
right.
So give him the information to read and stuff. He's gonna look at you like you're crazy. Like that's a lot of words on the paper. But if you give him the instruction and talk to him about it and give him his testing one-on-one and stuff, like he's A+. And then there are other students where they just don't respond as you're talking, but they can read the material. They're more visual. They can read the material and understand it, and they can respond better. These are the teachers that are prepared to do stuff like that. It will be amazing if it's a universal thing where all the kids are able to do that.
Right. Well, I can tell you a lot of those types of teachers, they're usually certified specially and they learn different things. So yeah. Privately school, you just heard a lady say even in private school, they don't usually hire those individuals. They're teaching everybody the same. And if your child does need something special, then parents are having to pay extra on the outside. So still, you got to pay on top of the school you already paying. That just doesn't make any sense. Bernice says, we took our kid to museums and traveled to different places during the summer so that they could see other cultures and not just what's taught in the school. That is a good thing there. Hey, we got YFC in the house. What's going on?
What up,
Either Shelton or Key. I don't know which one it is, but I do know that Key is a educator. Thank you for being here. We're actually just about to wrap it up. Thank you, Key. I would really like it if whenever you get a chance, catch the replay and then just provide any type of comments or whatever you have in there. It would be very helpful, not just for us, but also for maybe others who have watched it. To hear from a subject matter experts. We're just talking based on parents and former students, so that's what we're basing it on.
We just parents.
Oh my God. Liam said, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and so forth and so on. Exactly. What do you know what that means?
No.
Mr. Math Man?
No.
What you mean you don't know?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna know. Hold on. PEMDAS. Do you remember that?
No.
Okay, so please excuse my Dan Sally was just a term that they use so students remember the acronym of which order to calculate your math equations in. So P stood for parentheses, E stands for exponents, M stands for multiplication, D stood for division, A stood for addition, and S was subtraction. So if you had letters and stuff that had all of those symbols and stuff, you needed to know which of these did you do first to get the answer. Because if you did it in the wrong order, your answer wasn't going to be right. So that was just what they give you to remember PMD,
I never got that. I was told parentheses says do me first. So that's what I was told.
Okay, so what you do after parentheses?
Break down the fractions.
Okay, no. It's exponents now.
Well, after parentheses, you break down whatever fractions you get. You break it down to the smallest part to down.
But if ain't no fractions.
Well, then you move on.
What's the next one? That's what that was for.
The next step is when I got a pen and a pad, I can look at it and tear it all the way down because there's more formulas in math than a little bit. And
we talking about simple stuff. We ain't talking about
it's simple stuff.
Okay.
The formulas was the simple stuff.
But look, y'all, I'm gonna put a short out. I'm gonna put a little video, a little short on TNT, and give him a couple of please excuse my dear Aunt Sally's and see how many he get right.
Look at it. You can tell me what you want, but if it's a math, it's an algebra, chemistry, is it calculus or whatever, even if it's a C++, C++, or Java.
Okay.
Pretty Timmy can handle it.
What's Java?
Another computer program.
Okay.
C++, and Java. All three are computer. And then they got some of the old Fortran. People probably won't remember that.
Okay. You said old, so they probably ain't using it no more.
No.
Liam said, and I still remember that today. I do as well. And YFC said, okay, cool. Thank you so much, Key. We pretty much, I know we had other topics, but we pretty much talked about them during the other one, so I'm not bringing them up. But just to, to end this or whatever, do you feel that education is a scam? In other words, if you had to do it over again with your children, minus the special needs, right? Okay. Would you send your child public school, private school, or homeschool?
It doesn't matter.
What would you do?
Knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you grow. Knowledge is power. So that's it. So, I mean, you're going to get that from all across the board. So I don't believe that public school is no better than private. Private is no better than public. But I do believe in one thing. Knowledge is power. He who has the knowledge has the power.
Okay, you didn't answer. You didn't say yes or no.
No, I did answer it.
You said so. You would just keep it the same.
Yes,
public
I
school.
mean, no. I would, like I'm saying, knowledge is power. But the school teaching and all that, that's equal across the board. So if you prefer private school, now what
about homeschool? That was an option.
Even if you prefer homeschool, the knowledge is the nucleus of what you're trying to have. Okay. If you got the knowledge, you got the power.
Okay.
The rest is just on top of the cake. relevant tonight.
Okay, so he would still send her to public school. Okay. Stacy, what about your daughter? You're on mute.
No, education is very important. We could do this. We're gonna do the same thing because it opens up an
You wouldn't
opportunity
have
that
changed.
like my daughter. Yeah, it opens up an opportunity that wouldn't have been available any other way but through education for our situation. And this is outside of even special needs. It opens up an opportunity for her. So it's gonna be the same, and it's gonna be public school versus private. Again, even if I was able to afford it, like if we had to redo it and then have a better situation or whatever, it's gonna be public school because there are experiences that she experienced in public school that she'd probably never experienced in private school. That I'm appreciative of now that I know as a parent.
Okay. For me, just based on what my daughter has been through with public school and how much in the beginning or the first half of grade school through elementary, how she was like forced for herself to be in a box trying to learn that indoctrination type learning, which she didn't do well in. But she did fine in the gift once they transferred over to the gifted side, because then she was able to express her learnings and how she retained it because it was approached differently. I think I would put her in private school, a charter school, not private. Charter school is a little more, you basically are owning what it is. You determine what the curriculum is or whatever. I don't think I would homeschool because I don't have the patience for it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I just don't have the patience for it. And I'm just going to be honest, but definitely that. I think that I would do that, or it would be like a mixture of the two. It would be, if it was public school, I would definitely introduce a tutor, just ongoing all the way. I think that I would have invested a little more in her education previously and earlier on. That's the only thing I would do differently. But more so where what she focused on outside of her normal schooling was more of really the areas she needed assistance in to understand it from her perspective, so she could retain it and be able to, provide what it was the way they wanted her to provide it. So definitely, most definitely. When you said knowledge is power, who remembers Schoolhouse Rock? We can end this on Schoolhouse Rock. What was your favorite Schoolhouse Rock song? Which one?
Verb.
You like Verb? Verb is action.
Word, yep.
Verb is act. You know the words?
No, I don't know all the words.
You don't know the word. You at least know like one little sentence.
Look. I know verb.
Do the hook then.
I can take a word and bend it.
Verb.
That's the action word. I can order like go get it.
Verb.
That's the action word.
I like that. What about you, Stacy? You knew one from Schoolhouse Rock.
I don't know one but that one that y'all saying.
You ain't gotta remember this one, but I know you know some Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill. You don't remember that?
Yeah. I'm just sitting here on Capitol Hill, but one day I pray I'll become a law.
How about me? I'm still like this. I'm putting it up on YouTube now so I can play it for my son.
Oh, look, hold on. Wait,
that's what I'm about to do right now.
I'm about to play it as we go out.
Yeah, because I know certain things that we experience that they never experienced. So as soon as you guys said it, I just started typing okay, this is something that you need to watch.
Yes.
I literally like that. Yeah.
Oh, let me tell you something. Schoolhouse Rock was the bomb, and let me tell you.
Yeah.
It helped me sometimes singing this song to help me remember some stuff when I had to remember it. Like something as little as that remembered. Let me see. The children has to learn. I'm sending my kids to school so they can babysit them while I'm at work. You know what? Why? Bernice said, Liam, it's your bedtime. Liam said, I think our schooling system needs a different tweak to make learning better. I agree, because you know why? Learning is much different, and there's a lot more there's a lot more information out there that is available in order for that to stay the same. It really does need to be redone. It just really does, because you can learn some stuff at home. I'm just being honest. If you trying to learn something, I'm talking about the what and the hows, because the whys, you got to talk to somebody who has the experience, and you can probably YouTube that too.
Yes.
Yeah, but Schoolhouse Rock was what it was. Growing up, listening to that, that's what it was.
My son didn't tell me, he's so boring, but I'm going to send it to him. You are absolutely right. As soon as she said Schoolhouse Rock, I got on my phone. I looked away, I was like, oh, I need to get him back.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Bernice remembers that. And Liam said, conjunction, junction, what's your function? Hooking up phrases and making them sound right. Hold on a second. I'm about to bring it up, because we're going to go out with Schoolhouse Rock.
Oh, my God. This is a really good one tonight.
Oh, my God.
And if you could send me that video,
we're gonna do verb. We're gonna do verb.
Can you please send me that video I asked you for earlier?
What'd you say?
Can you please send me that video of the lady?
Yes, ma'am. I will. I'll text it to you.
Yeah,
I'll text it to you.
Thank you.
Okay, hold on. Let me go ahead and put this on. Let me share my screen. And first thing I want to say is thanks everyone for joining us. Those who joined us, be able to put some comments. If you are catching a replay, go ahead and put some comments and some questions and some things in the chat. And if there's anything you want to highlight that we were talking about today that you just want to let people know about, please go ahead and do that. Thank you for joining. Stacy, thank you for being a member. Thank you for all my members who attended and those watching the replay. And thank you, honey, for joining in. All right, y'all. Let's go on and take it out with conjunction junction. Well, no, we're gonna do verb. We said, right? We're gonna do verb. We're gonna do verb. Yes.
I get my thing in action. To be, to see, to feel, to live. That's what's happening. I put my heart in action. To run, to go, to get, to give. You're what's happening. That's where I find satisfaction. Yeah. To search, to find, to have, to hold. To be bold. When I use my imagination, I think, I plot, I plan, I dream, turning in towards creation. I make, I write, I dance, I sing. When I'm feeling really active, I run, I ride, I swim, I fly. Other times when life is easy, I rest, I sleep, I sit, I lie. That's what's happening. I can take a noun and bend it. Give me a noun. That's both break and wow. Make it a verb and really send it. Show me how. Oh, I don't know my own power. Get my thing in action, in being, and doing, and saying. A verb expresses action, being, or a state of being. Verb makes a statement. Yeah, a verb tells it like it is. That's what's happening. I can tell you when it's happening. Past, present, future tense. Tell you more about what's happening. Say it, so it makes some sense. Oh, I can tell you who is happening. Verb, you're so intense. Hey, every sentence has a subject. Now, person, place, a thing. Find that subject, where's the action? Verb that make the subject sing. Take a subject, what is it? What's done to it? What does it say? I can question like, what is it? Verb, you're so demanding. I can order like, go get it. When I hit, I need an object. Ooh, when I see the object.
Do you see that curling ball?
If you can see it there, put the ball on the fence, man. Go ahead on. Yeah, all right. What? He hit it. It's going. It's going. It's going. I get my thing in action. To work, to play, to live, to love.
All right.
They're gonna be $2.50.
All right. Those of you who don't know about Schoolhouse Rock, I don't care what nobody say. If the kids like music or whatever, they're trying to learn their grammar, they're trying to learn their math, they're trying to learn about social government and everything. Schoolhouse Rock was the place to go. So
yeah, I think they did 3 seasons before they killed it.
Sure did, but they covered everything, so it's fine. It's fine.
I love it.
But anyway.
I love it.
Enjoyed you. You have a good night.
I'm about to use that right now. You know, I'll be teaching at home. Watch me and Sebastian. We about to be rocking.
Okay. All right. See you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Pick me up, standing on the green like Wimbledon. Match point set serve, going for the win. Try to stay humble, still going do it big. Don't assume I'm cocky, I'm confident. Earned every dollar for the time I spent. Hard times they come and go. 10 toes I never fold. I could never ever ever go. I try to get some peace, that's all I need. I try to get some peace, that's all I need.